no matter what war. Radio Talks Podcast. Radio Zoo.
If nothing works out with your Kremlin friend, and it certainly won't, because your interests are fundamentally different, you need to freeze the war, even briefly, to fulfill a campaign promise, while he needs to annihilate Ukraine while his terrorist hordes still have any momentum. You'll still have to wrap this up somehow. Even your own people won't understand. If you fail, they'll call you weak. And so, you'll inevitably start resolving this at the expense of the weaker party. Not to be confused with weak, we're talking about the one with fewer resources. In other words, at Ukraine's expense. What will you need for this? The simplest trick: some fabricated conditions for a so-called truce, which the Ukrainian people will categorically reject. This will give you an excuse to tie their hands while untying your own, cutting off Ukraine's access to U.S. arms. For instance, you could propose that Ukraine surrender Crimea, handing it over to Moscow, as if that would somehow close the issue of aggression. Or perhaps cede the already occupied territories, plus the Ukrainian lands the Kremlin is still eyeing. For you, the matter will be settled easily without even needing proof. Because Ukrainians will never surrender. They will resist. But without weapons, or only with the meager supplies from the EU, they won't last long against the swarming hordes of Russian orcs. Ukraine will suffocate in the stench of their rotting human waves. Or perhaps, along with your pack of political scavengers, you'll start looking for Ukraine's weakest point, playing along with the Kremlin dwarf. And of course, you'll find it's Ukraine's leadership, the weakest link in the chain. So, what will your little cabal do with that? Buy them off, like goods at a market? Too expensive. Their appetites are too large, and they've already calculated how much this war should bring them. And you can't buy them all because they're not alone. There are their mothers, fathers, lovers, mistresses, a bunch of degenerates in Monaco, relatives back in the Swiss Alps. Threaten them by exposing where all their stolen money is? They won't be scared. That money wasn't earned, it was stolen, meaning it was always at risk of exposure. They'll assume it's a bluff. And if it comes to trial, well, it wouldn't be the first time for them. Or even the 10th. Besides, a huge chunk of their fortunes is stashed in China. Some even in the swamps. Threaten them with, Putin will come and restore order? They don't care. They are of the same putrid, inhuman blood as that Putin. They even carry the same passports except for a few golden ones bought for investments, but those are still Russian. Kill them off, butcher them like overfed pigs? But what's the point? It wouldn't solve anything. Others would just take their place. It's like trying to eradicate giant hogweed. You cut it down, and it grows back twice as fast. Do nothing? Abandon it all? That won't work either. You may think you don't have to fight, that the war is far away, that it's Europe's problem, not yours. The same cowardly thoughts. The same foolish conclusions. But everything will come full circle. First, the Ukrainians will be forced to abandon their positions along the EU borders to retreat into the mountains, fortifying defenses, preserving what's left of their people, their weapons, their children. And after that retreat, the EU will immediately become the next battlefield. More wealth to plunder. Fresher women and children, not as tough as Ukrainians. And after that, the road to a new Pearl Harbor will be short. Only this time, the attack won't come from Japan, which you know well, but from China. Even more ruthless. Even more insidious. And you know what? War will knock at your door in Mar-a-Lago. It will knock at the door of that space cadet of yours, at the doors of your children, your wife. And your space clown won't even be able to flee to his precious Africa because by then, he'll have managed to piss everyone off there too. The only thing that might save you from the consequences of your own brainless decisions is your age. Your true wealth. The only thing fast enough to catch up to you before the war you helped ignite does.